I got a few surprises for you too, baby.
Hello everybody, it's your girl Tobi Green Adenowo, also known as Tough CookieTee on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, you can find me in those areas. This show is powered by Disabled Power Network and you are now watching Tobi's TV show. So sit back, relax, go get yourself a cup of tea and let's get into it. This is an introduction to who I am and you'll get to know me as a host before you get to know my amazing, awesome friends. So let's get into it. All my family are Muslim. I was born into an amazing family and unfortunately part of my story is being in the foster care system. However, I'm a fighter and I want to tell you a little bit about it. Let's start from the beginning. So I originally grew up in South London, to be exact, Bermondsey. And my mother came from Nigeria. She didn't really know much English and she had me. She was hoping to actually be a nurse. And I don't think she really knew that she was pregnant with me. But after having me, she realized that I was crying a lot. And eventually she would have to keep taking me to and from hospital. This basically meant that I was quite a fragile child at the beginning. But I was always a fighter. And to this day, I'm still the same way. We thank God, alhamdulillah. So eventually, the social services kind of thought that my mum was actually abusing me. And she was the one breaking my bones. And in the Nigerian culture, often we do like massages and things like that for when children are brand new, when they're newborns. And so obviously my mum did all of the traditional things, not realizing that I had something called osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as brittle bones, type 3, which basically means that I break bones super, super easy. And I was born in 1992, which means, unfortunately, it was a time whereby, disability, and specifically my disability, wasn't recognized. And especially being a black child, I think a lot of the assumption was that there was something untoward going on. However, that wasn't the case. So eventually doctors found out that I have brittle bones and eventually I got treatment for it and I was in and out of hospital most of my life. I have actually broken 78 bones. Yeah, 78. And to be fair, I don't know whether that's the exact amount because I was moved around when I grew up in foster care. So that's another thing about me that people may or may not know. I grew up in the foster care system from the age of 3 months old. So when I was breaking bones, I was taken away from my mother and placed in in my first foster home, which was a Jamaican household, and it was a lovely lady called Mrs. Drysdale. And Mrs. Drysdale, to this day, she absolutely loves me and supports me, and yeah, she's just an amazing person. She always saw my strength from when I was young. So after some time going in and out of care, my mum kind of developed a mental health issue. And so it kind of meant that I eventually ended up in permanent care. And so I guess that's really where my story really began, because my mum eventually went back home, and to this day, unfortunately, we don't know where she is. She's in Nigeria somewhere, possibly alive or possibly passed away. And so as a Muslim, we say Allah Yarhamu, which just basically means may her soul be rested in Jannah. May she be okay in the future, wherever she is. So often I think about her and she is my driving force. She is who I strive to be because she was such a strong woman and she always wanted the best for all of her children. So fast forward to sort of like me being in permanent care. At the age of like 8 or 9 years old, I was taken outside of London and put into a foster home that was in a place called Herne Bay, which is in Kent. Kent is a very majority white area, and I was the only child that was black in my primary school, which was quite a big difference. I remember when I first saw sheep and cows on the field, I was like, wow, I only ever saw them like literally in a farm. And like literally when I saw them out and about just roaming, I said, wow, okay, so this is what I've not seen before, because living in London is obviously all high-rise buildings, and I lived in quite a, like, I don't know, like in an area that wasn't as affluent. It wasn't as rich, basically. And then back in the 90s, there was a lot of racism, and there was lots of people from all different countries living in this particular high-rise building. So anyway, moving to Kent in Herne Bay, moving to Herne Bay was really a big culture shock for me. Like, genuinely, I was so worried and scared, but I was also hopeful, because I knew that no matter what, God has got my back. I didn't quite know how to voice that at the time, but I knew that I've always got like the spirit of my mum and my own strength to hold me up, basically. So my foster family were actually Mormons. I don't know whether you guys know what Mormons are, but they're very religious Christian people. And my foster dad was actually a Mormon priest, funny enough. So again, I went from a Muslim household to a Christian, very strict Mormon household. And actually, funny enough, I kind of loved it, because they always had like different music, and there was so many different events that was going on in the church, and I really enjoyed it, actually. But equally, I knew that it wasn't really a place that I wanted to be. I wanted to be with my mum, you know. So anyway, I would regularly see my mum, and this was before she went to Nigeria, and it was great. But she was always she was struggling. I really think that, you know, obviously mental health within the Black community is really something that needs to be spoken about more. And I think with my mum, she needed so much more support. Like, you know, she didn't really know the language very well, and it was really difficult for her. And I can only imagine, like, obviously now growing up, I really empathize with her. And I think at the time I used to take a lot of blame on myself. Anyway, after some time, you know, I would really get stuck into school, and school was my escape. That was where I could really like not think about all my issues. And so I would get involved in like clubs and fun fair events and raising money, and I'd love sports day. I absolutely love sports day. So fast forward a little bit to me being a teenager now. I was then moved again, obviously, because I told you I moved 18 times, which is crazy. So one of the foster homes that was quite prominent that I want to share with you is a foster home that I lived in a place called Shoreham by Sea, which is right next to Brighton. Now, Brighton, I would say at the time when I lived there, which was the early 2000s, I'm showing my age. But anyway, in the early 2000s, it was very different, you know. There was, I feel like Brighton was the up and coming Black and multicultural area, because I felt like people left London to kind of move to Brighton and enjoy the fruits of their labour and stuff like that, and get a bigger house and stuff like that. So I went to a really, really good school, and that school changed my life completely. Like, it made me who I am now. I got into dancing. I was also training for the Paralympics as a wheelchair racer. I was doing a 100-meter sprint, and I was extremely fast. I'm not sure whether you know a young lady called Hannah Cockcroft, but if you see how fast she was, that's how fast I am, or is, should I say. She's won lots of medals. So I'm as fast as she is. So when we was young, when we was in our teenage age, we did something called UK School Games, which basically you go against each other, and it's a mini Paralympics before you get to the big stage of Paralympics, and get like drafted as a GB squad and things like that. So when I started wheelchair racing, I absolutely loved it because I felt like I could really get my energy out and my sort of emotions out. I would really go for it, you know. I'd really like this with my hands. And I was very strong, and I'd wheel everywhere, and I didn't have an electric wheelchair at the time. I used a manual only. And remember, like I said, I have brittle bones. So it was something that I was never really allowed to do when I was under the care of my mum. Bless her, she used to be really scared that I would hurt myself or something like that. But actually I was okay. Alhamdulillah, I was fine. And after training for the Paralympics, whilst also doing dance competitions regionally, I was doing dance competitions regionally. I realised that my calling really is something to do with TV and dance and something like that, you know. And I felt that I met somebody who most of you probably already know when I was about 15 or 16. He's an amazing presenter on TV, and he's in a wheelchair too. And he does wheelchair basketball. Put in the comments if you know who I'm talking about. But he basically kind of without him knowing, he kind of made me realise like that maybe wheelchair racing wasn't my calling, because we had a discussion about like whether, you know, what I want for my future. And I was kind of saying like, I love wheelchair racing, but I want to make change, and I want to share my story, and I want to do what you do on TV. And so, yeah, I kind of, as time went on, I started like going to more like dance technique classes, and I kind of slowed down on going to training. Literally, I used to train in the snow, in the rain, you name it. I was dedicated. I was very, very fit and healthy. I loved wheelchair racing, but I knew that I didn't want to be like most of the disabled people that we all know in the community. I feel like a lot of disabled people get jobs on TV because they were Paralympians, and I didn't want that for my life. I wanted the UK to change its ways, and this is the reason why I've created this show, is because I want the UK to change its mindset on disabled people, because disabled people do all kinds of things. There's disabled doctors, nurses, surgeons. There's disabled bike makers. There's disabled, you know, you name it, they do it, right? I know people who do surfing, or they literally are ice skating or something like that. Literally, like, the sky is genuinely the limit. And when I used to train for the Paralympics, we'd go to a place, what was it called? Oh God, I'll write it down. I'll pop it in the edit. But basically, this place, it showed me all different types of sports that I could do. So there was hockey, swimming, archery, basketball. Yeah, there was literally a plethora of things that we could do. Fencing. Oh, I love a good fencing. honestly. Fencing is amazing for energy to be expended out. Honestly, if you've got kids and you don't know what to do with them, put them into fencing. But yeah, so I explored so many of those things, and I met hundreds of people in wheelchairs and different types of wheelchairs. And so that's when I started to really realize that, I think it's time to branch out. And I also got people in my school. So the school that I went to, the high school that I went to, actually had it was a mixed school. So there was disabled and able-bodied people, and they would have like a unit for disabled people, and then the rest of the school is, yeah. So the unit was called LNC. I think it's called Learning. Oh God, I don't remember now. It was so long ago. But basically there was like a room that we could have our lunch in. We would communicate together. We would, that's a place that you could, we would do our physiotherapy in there. We'd do hydrotherapy. We'd learn how to do sign language. You name it, it was there. And so I loved it. However, I also love mixing with people who are able-bodied. I think that it's really important. And so I don't like when there's segregation. I don't like when there's segregated schools for disabled people. It doesn't teach us to kind of mix with each other. But that is where I learned my skills, really, on how to speak so well and so easily. I've always been a chatterbox. My mum used to call me a parrot. She'd say, this girl, you're a parrot. What's the why? Every time you people you keep quiet. So I'm using it to an advantage now, I hope you're proud of me, mummy. I'm trying, Sha. I'm using it for good now. But yeah, like I was a chatterbox. I always had something to say. I loved to put on makeup when I was younger. I used to love a good fashion look. Yeah, that was me. So, I also I would say, I'm gonna toot my own horn. I was the it girl. I'm not gonna lie. I was the it girl, because I would encourage others who were disabled to step out of their comfort zone. And I would get others to feel good about being a disabled person. And even if they're not disabled, if even my able-bodied friends, like even on prom day, the way we would go to school is we'd get picked up by a taxi. The taxi would pick up each disabled person from their home and bring them to the school. So I had, there was a deaf young man in there, and then there was another young lady. She had like a disability from having meningitis, and then another young lady who had a disability from her mother drinking alcohol. So she had fetal alcohol syndrome. She was my best friend. She was new to the school and everyone didn't really know who she was. And I made friends with her. I'm that kind of girl. If I see someone by themselves, I'm like, come. Don't be by yourself. Come on, let's chat. So literally, I would build their confidence up. I would, do their makeup for them, curl their hair. I would literally make them feel good about themselves. And even the guys, I would boost them. I'd be like, yeah, you're that guy. Put on a nice shirt and stuff like that. And I remember the place, Stoke Mandeville. Now, if you lot know Stoke Mandeville, that was the place to be. That was the place to be. If you're disabled and you want to mix with other new people that are also disabled, that was the place to be. And it was created for those who had road accidents or whatever, and then ended up with a disability. And essentially, that was like a rehabilitation center for them. And so they had a residential part, and then they had the actual they had a track field place. They had literally, honestly, it was amazing. They had a massive swimming pool. They had different courts for hockey, and then they'd have archery. They'd have fencing. it was amazing. If I have a disabled child in the future, or if I know someone who ends up having a child with a disability, I would definitely say to them, take your child there, because it taught all of us like really amazing skills. So yeah, when I made friends with this particular young lady, I realized that she was getting bullied because she didn't really, her communication skills it wasn't up to par. And so I feel like I kind of took her under my wing and made sure that she was part of my little squad, my little group of friends, because I just felt that obviously moving from school to school, like I did feel alone at one point in my life. And so I wanted to make people comfortable. I wanted to let them feel like, they had a place they could stay, really. Prom comes around and I've done my makeup and I'm doing all my friends' makeup. I'm doing their hair, I'm curling their hair, I'm doing all of that. And we get into the limo and all of us, literally we had the time of our life. And I feel like I said, that particular school, it changed me in such a positive way. I also changed the national curriculum for GCSE Dance. Yeah, I did that. Period. I worked really hard. I got an A star. Bearing in mind, my predicted grades were all E's and D's. So the school did not believe in me at all. They were not believing in me. They literally thought that I would fail. And I said, hey, you think me? I'm going to fail. And one good thing my carer did do was she never told me about my predicted grades. Alhamdulillah. Because I feel like if I saw it, I'd probably feel some type of way. And I probably wouldn't have gone for it the way I did. But anyway, so I've let me take you through actually changing the national curriculum for GCSE Dance. Literally, it happened all in God's timing. That's the best way I can explain it. So I remember when I first went to the school and I saw the dance studio and I just loved the the sounds and everything. I said, okay, I want to get involved. Let me get involved. So I checked the studio and I saw the teacher, and bless her, she was so short. She's the best teacher ever. And she, I don't know whether I can really mention her name, and any other names I'll probably take out. But this particular dance teacher, she was so short, like me. And literally, like, she was so like encouraging, and she saw my face light up when I saw the dance studio. And so during like lunch times and break times, I would go there instead of staying in the LNC. And one day she said to me, Tobi, I say, yes. She said, girl, why don't you get your friends who are disabled to come along and join us? I said, that's actually a good idea. She said, let's make a dance company. And I was like, really? And she said, yeah, let's make a dance company. Come on. So I was gassed. I was like, okay, let's do this. I was scared, but I wasn't scared. You know the ones, I was like, I want to do it, but I'm like, can I do it? So anyway, I go to the LNC and I'm talking to everyone. I'm like, yo, guys, let's dance. They're like, what? I'm like, listen, just come with me. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how I convinced absolutely everyone to come along, but I managed to get them to come along, and they all loved it. And if you guys were the ones that I convinced to come to the dance studio, comment below, please, because I love you. And anyway, so we had so much fun, and the company was a mixed company, and it was able-bodied and disabled, and that's what my motto is. I don't think that there should be separation. So anyway, we auditioned for Britain's Got Talent. Can you imagine? It was the same year as diversity. We applied for diversity. Applied for Britain's Got Talent. We we went through it, and honestly, we had so much fun. And unfortunately, we didn't get through, but it was the point that we put in work and effort into it. And so this is where my work ethic came from. There is so much more about me that I can't share in just one episode, but from time to time, I will do special episodes where you can get to know a little bit more about me. The final thing I want to share is that I actually am in the National British Museum. So if you go to the museum, my story will be there for the next 30 years. And if you guys want to see me go along to that and actually go and see it and listen to my story there, then we can do that. We can document it and we can go together, because I actually haven't been there to see like where I am. But like my whole story is there. I've got a gele on and everything. I'm giving you Nigerian babe just arrive. And I literally tell my story about being in foster care and all the things that I've been through and my dreams and hopes for the future. And so fast forward to now, I have been really unwell, but during the time that I have been unwell and I've got better, I have really thought about why I want to have this TV network and this TV program, because it's really important that the way I grew up, you guys get to see it, because I've come across so many interesting human beings in this dunya, in this life. And I really want you to see that. And I want you to understand the stories of others who don't get seen, So anyway, I've done a whole bunch of talking. I'm really grateful for you coming along and listening to me on this lovely sofa, on this lovely couch. And please subscribe, like, comment, and share with your neighbors, your families. Because why? We need to grow, guys. We need to grow. We need to share all of this talent out to others. I love you so very much. Take care, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Brilliant. I felt like I was on YouTube.
I got a few surprises for you too, baby.
Let's go. Hey. What? Hey.
Yay! Love it. Okay. Nice. She loves it, innit? She loves it. You can see it.